This is a game I was putting off for a while. It's a game with an unusual premise, and many people I've told about it kind of recoiled in disgust, or showed way too much unwelcome enthusiasm. Usually the former. It's the Maid RPG, and one that I was incredibly excited about when I first found it. But as the first RPG from Japan to be translated into English, I felt I'd be remiss not to eventually talk about it. So, with all that said, let's talk about some maids. Maid, as I mentioned earlier, was the first Japanese RPG officially translated and published in English back in 2008. It's also a game made by one of my favorite game designers, Ryo Kamiya. The same Ryo Kamiya whomst made Drivethru RPG, Data Toko Saga, Golden Sky Stories, and many others. The premise is like something straight out of a late 90s or early 2000s anime or manga. The game master takes on the role of a master of a harem of maids, played by the players. The players are then in charge of fulfilling various chores for their master. Shenanigans ensue. There's not much else to it. So with that said, let's segue into the game's mechanics. Character creation in Maid is fairly quick and involves rolling a lot of charts and is otherwise entirely random. If that last part startles you, just remember, you're playing a silly game about maids that will only last one session. And if min-maxing is that important to you in this situation, you probably need to rethink your life's priorities. First, you randomly roll for your attributes, each one calculated by rolling 2d6 and dividing that result by 3, rounding down. The 6 attributes are athletics, which governs anything physical, affection, which governs bonding with others, skill, which is doing actual work, cunning, which is tricking people to do work for you, and luck, which is always the most important stat in any game, and will, keeping positive and remaining focused. Then you roll for 2 maid types, which further alter your attributes, and decides part of your character's aesthetic. In fact, that's most of what character creation is, random charts. I won't go over every single step in chart, it's all fairly short and simple. But I will take a moment to go over 2 stats that are important, favor and spirit. Favor is a measure of how much the master likes you, and starts off equal to your affection score times 2. Meanwhile, spirit is your ability to handle things going wrong, which is equal to 10 times your will. I'll go over these more when we segue into game mechanics, which will happen right now. All attribute rolls call for 1 die, which is rolled and multiplied by the relevant attribute. It's then compared to a target number. Conflict against another character builds off of this. Both parties roll 1 die, multiplied by their attribute they're using, and whoever gets higher wins. The loser takes psychological damage in the form of stress. This amount is equal to the winner's total score divided by the loser's stat that they rolled with. For example, Setsuna is absent-mindedly trying to walk into a room she's got no business being in, while Felicia is trying her darndest to stop her. Felicia is rolling with will because she absolutely refuses to let her master down, and Setsuna is rolling with athletics because she just thinks the door is jammed. Felicia has a will of 4, but rolls 2, giving her a total of 8. Setsuna has an athletics of 3 and rolls 6, giving her an 18 that easily beats Felicia's 8. Setsuna rolled 18, and Felicia's will is 4, so Felicia only takes 4 stress, since 18 divided by 4 is 4.5, and we round down. And as I mentioned earlier, spirit is a measure of how much stress you can take on. If your stress exceeds your spirit, your character enters what is called a stress explosion, and becomes only able to do actions in keeping with their stress explosion trait. This state lasts 1 minute for each point of stress your character has, as in 1 minute real time, even if you step away from the table and use the bathroom for a while. This game is silly. This is just one method of reducing stress, however. The other is spending favor. Favor is this game's meta currency that has several uses per this chart. Favor is primarily gained by succeeding in tasks set forth by the master. Your maid does something that pleases the master, they gain favor. Favor, however, is important. If a maid's favor ever drops to 0, they're dismissed. This is the closest you can get to character death in Maid. But favor can also be used for the things listed on this chart. It's that last thing that I want to bring attention to. Random events. This is probably the meat of Maid. Quite literally, it's making things happen to generate the plot. This can be used by the GM or a player at any time, though players need to spend their hard-earned favor in order to use it. If the GM is having trouble moving things forward, roll on the random event table. If a player thinks things aren't crazy enough, spend favor to roll a random event. Because chores are always more fun when something starts happening that you don't expect and don't want to happen. And if variety is what you're craving, there's several happening charts for several alternate settings as well. Is this game worth it? Of course. The link to the review I made for this should tell you everything you need to know. It's a lightweight, short-range RPG. It's not ideal at all for campaigns or otherwise long-running games. And while there's a lot of character options to roll for, allowing players to choose robs the game of some of its charm. It's also weak mechanically. Everything literally comes down to just one core mechanic. But these aren't bad things. Insane complexity isn't always ideal. Not everybody wants to play Shadowrun, The Dark Eye, or Hero. And further, even those that would play the aforementioned games, such as yours truly, can still revel in something simple that's just meant to be quick, crazy, and lighthearted. Plus, even though a lot of content was cut from the English edition, specifically stuff that was excessively risque or glorifying World War II era Germany, the English edition otherwise compiles everything from the Japanese core book and later splat books into one volume. So, if you want something quick, easy, and a little unusual, give Maid a try. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, give me a thumbs up like. And if you're interested in learning about other games from Japan, be sure to subscribe. And if you're feeling generous and want to help the channel further and get your name plastered here in the ending sequence, considering contributing to the Patreon. Finally, this video is not a comprehensive guide, so remember, read the rules for yourself. With all that said, I am Aaron Der Schädel, and I will see you all next time.